أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله السلام عليكم. Welcome to the Legacy of the Prophets podcast. It's Miriam here with you, hoping to light up your hearts. Make yourselves comfortable. The hearth is lit, the embers are glowing, the stars are twinkling, and our journey begins. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Oh Allah, we turn to you in this story because we're weak and we're helpless, and you've given us speaking and listening and hearts and intellect, so use them to make this story take root in our very beings. Oh Allah, we have heard your warning. This is not a tale of the ancients, and we believe you. Did you know that less than 100 years ago, you could board a train in Istanbul? It would take you south through Turkey, and then through Syria, and then through Jordan, all the way to the sacred city of Medina. That railway was called the Hijaz Railway, and it was built by Ottoman Sultan Abdulhamid II to make the pilgrimage to Mecca more comfortable for people living north of the holy cities. You would pass through an isolated haunt in Saudi Arabia, now known as Median Salih, known then as Hijr, al-Hijr. 1,200 years earlier than that, the Prophet Muhammad, may Allah bless him and give him peace, passed through the same land with his troops, traveling from north from Medina Munawwara to Tabuk. The people were dazzled by the towering, strange-shaped outcroppings of sandstone. One massive stone seemed to cower like an old woman at the souk. Another soared like a lean cougar stretching into the sky, and still another hovered like a massive whale. Many of them had been mysteriously carved, columns and lintels, rafters and doorways, complete with inscriptions and guarding beasts, huge rooms stretching deep into the interiors of the rock, with odd rectangular shelves cut into the walls. What struck the visitors even more was the fascinating system of wells that ran through the place. The travelers were hot and tired. The first ones to arrive, ahead of those traveling behind them, gratefully filled their water skins from the wells they found there and prepared huge masses of dough for the day's meal. When the Prophet, may Allah bless him and give him peace, arrived with the rest of his troops, and was perhaps offered a drink from a water skin, his face paled. "Where did you get this water?" "From these wells over here." "Please, you must pour this water out at once." "We've used it to prepare the day's dough." "Pour it out. Feed the dough to the animals." He showed them one particular well and gave them permission to fill from there and nowhere else. And then he drew his cloak over his face, and ordering his troops to follow him, he rode away until he was outside that territory. Later he said to them, "When you hear about what happened here, you will understand. You will never want to drink or eat anything from a place such as this, so that what befell those who lived here will not befall you. Those dwellings belonged to the nation of Salih, the Thamud, whom Allah, mighty and majestic, destroyed, all except for one man, Abu Rigal. Do not enter the dwellings of those who wronged themselves, except that you should be crying, and if you cannot cry, then do not enter their dwellings at all, lest you be seized by what seized them." What was it that happened there? And who was Abu Rigal? And what was special about that particular well? This was the rocky tract, the place that had once been inhabited by Thamud, a people with extraordinary gifts of intelligence and skill. Out of a windswept moonscape of sand and rock, they were able to create a magnificent city with palaces and homes and lush gardens, watered by a special system of wells and protected by towering burial chambers carved into the sandstone cliffs around. They were active traders, both by land and by sea, and they considered their success to be a result of their own cleverness and industry. The truth was that they had inherited their skill from Allah, mighty and majestic, who had forwarded it to them from the people of Ad hundreds of years earlier. They had no interest in helping the poor or the sick, and no scruples about how they treated travelers and merchants from other lands, or how they conducted their trade either. The more their wealth increased, the more their badness increased, until they finally overstepped all bounds and earned the supreme wrath of Allah, mighty and majestic, utter annihilation. They preferred their blindness of heart to guidance, and they joined their ancestors, the Ad, the perished ones. Their messenger was Sayyidina Salih, peace upon him, the great, many generations removed grandson of Sayyidina Nuh, aleyhisalam. Salih was a young man, well known and greatly admired among them. In fact, they expected him to be among their leaders, because even as a boy, he would say things like, "Don't deny the poor people among us the rights to the wells," and "Don't force the poor farmers away from the pastures. They too must feed their animals." They grew to trust his advice. News came to him from Allah, mighty and majestic, that he was to call his people to worship him and him alone, mighty and majestic. And so then he said, "Oh, my people, worship Allah. You have no other God but him." "Whatever are you talking about, Salih? Who do you think you are? We've never heard such talk from you before, nor from anyone else in our city." He said, "Who has produced you from the earth? Who has taught you the skills by which you've created this magnificent city, or these gardens with their abundant flowing waters, or these fields of corn and seas of date trees groaning with sweet fruit?" They threw back their heads in pride. "Our fathers taught us these things, and we work hard, and we succeed because of that." "Wrong," Salih aleyhisalam said. "It's not by yourselves that you have done these things. Ask forgiveness of him now, for he's always near, always ready to answer. If not, you face his wrath and his penalty as surely as your ancestors did." But their hearts were hard. "Our gods will obtain forgiveness for us, the gods our fathers handed down to us." Oh, my people, truly there is no God but Allah, and he detests that you worship any but him, for he created you and everything else.
"Oh, Salih, you're one of us. You've always been the center of our hopes. How can you forbid us to worship what our fathers have worshipped before us? We despise what you're calling us to, and we reject you as our leader. We think you are possessed."
But Sayyidina Salih aleyhisalam answered, "I have a clear sign from my Lord. He has sent mercy to me from himself. How can I possibly disobey him? I would surely be severely punished." Some of the people, out of respect for Salih, sincerely tried to consider what he was saying. Some of them even declared themselves his followers. And now the city was divided.
"You're up to no good, Salih. Why would Allah send one of our own to bring his message? You're just like we are. Why should we listen to you?"
"I expect nothing in return from you, nothing. I'm only delivering a message Allah has asked me to deliver, and the rest lies between you and him. Why do you wish to follow evil rather than good? If you turn to Allah, he may forgive you, for he is foremost in mercy. Turn away from those who make trouble in the land. Turn to Allah, for you are a people under trial."
Then give us a sign if you're telling the truth."
"If you have a sign, will you then believe?"
"Sure, Salih. That's what we've needed all along, just a sign."
Some say Salih aleyhisalam asked the Thamud to decide for themselves which sign. Some say they called out,
"Bring a camel forth from that rock, Salih." "Yes, Salih, a she-camel." "Make it a pregnant she-camel." "Let it be a red camel. They're worth more." "Yeah, a red pregnant she-camel." "A huge pregnant she-camel, so big that she can drink up all the water in our wells in a day."
and it is said that Salih aleyhisalam prayed, and Allah Mighty and Majestic heard. A huge rock shuddered nearby and opened, and out came the most magnificent red she-camel they had ever seen. She towered over them, and they could see that she was pregnant. The ones who had mockingly asked for her cowered and didn't know what to say. They could hardly look at her for shame and awe. And from that moment, a wild hatred began to grow in their hearts for her. And Allah, Mighty and Majestic, told Salih alayhi salam, "We have sent the she-camel as a trial for them. So watch them, O Salih, and possess yourself in patience." Possess yourself in patience. Salih alayhi salam told his people, "You have given your word. Now you must honor it. And you must honor her rights for water. She will drink on one day, and you may drink on the next. On her day at the well, you must not visit any of the wells. But you may drink her milk, for she will give milk in abundance. And you must not harm her in any way. She is a sign for you from your Lord." After a few days of her sweet milk, some people began to trust her as a sign from Allah. Some even joined Salih alayhi salam outright. And this infuriated the unbelievers, and they redoubled their efforts to make the whole affair into a sinister thing.
"Do you believe Salih is a messenger from his Lord?"
And the ones with pure hearts who could see the truth answered, "We do indeed believe in the revelation which has been sent through him."
"Well, we reject what you believe in."
"Why?" some asked.
"What's this? A camel is dictating when we can use our wells? What kind of a sign is that?"
And now there was trouble brewing in the city. The camel wandered here and there as she pleased. In a day's time, she gave birth to her calf, and then they wandered together. The children were captivated and delighted by the baby camel and followed them around wherever they could. But this made many of the people even meaner and angrier, and whenever the camels, followed by the children, strayed near the rest of the livestock, the animals ran away from them.
"Bewitched! What kind of camel comes out of a rock? What are the other animals afraid of anyway? If she wasn't bewitched, the animals wouldn't run away from her. By my soul, we must kill this thing and free ourselves from something evil.
Some of the ancient storytellers say that tongues were wagging everywhere in the city. They say that there was a wealthy woman whose heart was as black as her purses were full, and that she had 2 beautiful daughters. She went about offering them in marriage to men who would promise to kill the camel. The Quran tells us there were 9 men of a certain family who could always be counted upon to step in when something evil was needed to be done. The storytellers say 2 of them accepted the challenge. Anyways, they began watching the she-camel like hawks, waiting for an opportunity to kill her. They watched her drink at the well. They watched her make her way across the valley, back up to the rock she had emerged from. As they watched, they considered their options and finally even decided to kill Salih, as peace upon him, as well, and his people too. We'll attack them in the dead of the night, and then if any of his relatives come looking for what happened, we'll swear we were not there when he was killed and that we know nothing about it. But first, they had to finish off the camel. As the camel and her calf made their way down towards the well, the worst of those 9 rotten men shot an arrow into her right leg. She staggered near another man on the other side of the path, who slashed behind her knee, severing her hamstring, the ropey tendon that holds the knee joint together. Her great body came crashing to the ground. She cried out. Her baby ran away, back in the direction of the stone. Some of the men ran after it and brought it swiftly down. When the mother heard the screams of her young, she howled and heaved and flung herself about, but she could not get up. They plunged their swords deep into her body. Hot blood gushed and splashed. Her great body jolted and writhed and shuddered and then became frighteningly still. Salih came, aleyhisalam, but not running, though the camel's screams were like knife wounds in his own breast. His jaw muscles were working to remember Allah's words for him. Do you remember? He said, so watch them, O Salih, and possess yourself in patience. The men seemed to have been waiting for him. Oh, Salih, here we are. So bring about your threats if you're a messenger of Allah. Yes, Salih, where is it? Where is this big punishment you declared would come to us? Bring it on, we're ready. He turned from them and walked away. Wait and watch. Enjoy yourselves for 3 days. Roast her! The ringleader's voice rang out, and people came running from everywhere with firewood and knives and pots, all talking at once. Some were genuinely horrified and denounced the whole matter. They separated themselves immediately and went off with Salih, aleyhisalam, but the others set to work, laughing and chattering. They skinned the camel and opened her out. They cut away the perfect tendons and membranes and lifted out the magnificently designed stomach, the intestines, the huge lungs and dark heart. With quick, sure, practiced strokes, they changed the dead animal into piles of meaty bones and slabs for roasting. Before long, the air was filled with the smells and sounds of crackling fires and sizzling meat, and the people waited like hungry wolves for their ominous feast. The sun went down without a trace of color. The darkness was thicker and blacker because of the fires. With their bellies full of meat and wine, the nasty 9 set out for Salih's home, peace upon him, to carry out the second part of their grisly plan. But Allah, mighty and majestic, had planned too. Before they even got there, a sudden torrent of stones came slashing through the dark, and then a massive rock smashed upon them, crushing and mangling them beyond recognition. Every single man was killed. And Allah was the best of planners. Salih aleyhisalam and his followers and family were guided out of the city to a distant place where they would be safe. As they went, Salih aleyhisalam looked behind him and said, "O my people, I have indeed conveyed to you the message of my Lord, and I have given you good advice, but you did not benefit from it, because you do not like the truth and do not follow those who give you sincere advice." The sun rose on the city that first of the 3 promised days, to find the rest of the inhabitants still asleep. When they woke up, they were dismayed to look upon one another and see that every face they saw had gone yellowy pale. And then they found the 9 mangled, shattered bodies and tried to explain away the blast of stones that had killed them. For hours they struggled to extract the bodies and bury them, and their anxiety grew as the day wore on. And still they mocked Salih aleyhisalam and his warnings. And still they feasted again on more of the camel meat, but this time without the laughter and jokes. They woke horrified on the 2nd day to find that every single face they saw had turned red. But even that didn't silence their mockery. They hardly noticed that Salih aleyhisalam had already left with his family and followers. Only on the 3rd of the promised days, when they awoke to find all of their faces had turned black, did the reality of their situation begin to dawn on them. And yet, still, they had hearts of stone. Just before sunrise on the following day, the quaking earth heaved them out of their beds. A fearful wind began, and then there was a terrifying, throbbing roar that ripped into the cells and atoms of every living and non-living thing in that city and destroyed any possibility of its ever returning to normal again. The earth convulsed under skies raging with thunder and lightning, and their homes and gardens were flattened either from the quaking earth below them or the sayha, the shrill, hideous sound from above them, vibrating everything into smithereens. Only their elaborately carved burial chambers and the strange sandstone outcroppings and the hills and mountains remained standing, as they still stand to this day. 9 men had killed the camel, but everyone else had stood by without objecting and then greedily joined in the feast. And now they all had to taste the wrath of Allah, and indeed be sure they are still tasting it to this day, and they will never be released from it. And we must be certain to take note of this, for in this world there is no middle ground to hide on. Either one is for Allah and willing to affirm the good, or one is choosing shaitan and affirming evil. And indeed be sure, Allahu alam, that the ones causing mischief and bloodshed and torment today on this earth will soon be tasting the like of it, and the ones sitting on the fence, refusing to affirm the reality of evil, will taste it with those they refuse to oppose. The Thamud were the greatest of their day. They could build rooms inside mountains. They could generate amazing wealth. They were known far and wide for their lucrative trade. But alas, they were blinded by the great deceiver Shaitan into thinking their success was their own. They relied on their own power, but Allah's power is greater. Their hearts were blind, and they could not hear the guidance of their messenger, Salih aleyhisalam. It is said by some that Salih aleyhisalam and his people traveled to Palestine, and that he lived the rest of his life in a Ramlah and is buried there. It's said by others that he took refuge at the base of Mount Sinai, and that he was buried in a valley there, now known as Sheikh Nabi Salih, where even today the tribes of Sinai gather each year to commemorate his memory. It's also said that near the summit of Mount Sinai, there's a hoof print in the stone known as the hoof print of the prophet's camel. But whether it's the footprint of a camel of Salih aleyhisalam or of the prophet Musa aleyhisalam, only Allah, mighty majestic, knows. And who was Abu Rigal? 1400 years ago, which would have been more than 1,000 years after these events we're describing, the Prophet Muhammad, may Allah bless him and give him peace, passed by an ancient grave with his companions. This, he said, is the grave of Abu Rigal, a man from Thamud. He was in the sacred area in Mecca when the wrath of Allah was unleashed on his people, and this fact saved him from harm. But when he went out of the sacred area, what befell his people also befell him. He was buried here, along with a branch made from gold. So the tradition says that people used their swords to dig for the golden branch, and they found it. And the well Muhammad, may Allah bless him and give him peace, allowed them to use, that was the well Allah Mighty and Majestic had designated for his camel, his sign, the sign that the hard-hearted Thamud had been unwilling to honor. And it is said that that well is known to this day. The red mountains and strange towering rocks of that valley, along with many of the hollowed-out dwellings within the mountains, stand deserted today, still pulsing with the wrath of Allah. As a comment to the depravity of the times we're living in, the Saudi government is working to convert Median Salih into a tourist destination, neglecting, of course, to mention its true history. Subhanallah, listen to what Allah Mighty and Majestic has said in Surah Ankabut. And the people of Ad and Thamud met a similar fate, which must be clear to you Meccans from their ruins. Shaitan made their evil deeds appealing to them, hindering them from the right way, although they were capable of reasoning. That's from Surah Al-Ankabut, ayat 38. Some 500 years ago, the famous Arab traveler Ibn Battuta traveled through there and wrote about seeing human bone fragments within the broken cliff dwellings. Even more amazing, just 66 years ago, the Indian scholar and historian Maulana Maududi toured that area and wrote, "We could see by the shattered hills and landscape that an area 300 to 400 miles by 100 miles wide had been devastated by a terrible earthquake." O Allah, mighty and majestic, we rely on you and you alone to teach us the lessons of Salih, peace upon him. Guide us and give us tawfiq to exert ourselves to learn how to please you and be pleased by you, and to remember you and glorify you and rely on you and you alone. Our next episode is on Prophet Lut aleyhisalam. Ma salama.